Good morning, PTHS, and welcome back to The Edge. I'm your host, Tori Billings, and in this episode, I'm joined with Miss Patton and Miss Simmons, guidance counselors here at Peters Township High School. Today, we'll be discussing the college application process. From a student's point of view, this process is agonizing, boring, and very time-consuming. So let's hear this process from a professional's point of view. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to start off, a lot of people I feel like assume that junior year is the most important year of high school. So why do you guys think that a lot of people assume that?
I think junior year becomes a big year for students for a number of different reasons. So they might be adding more honors and advanced placement or college and high school courses to their course load. But it's also when they're going to be taking their PSATs and their SATs, which are a part of the college application eventually that they will get to senior year. But I do think it's also about just time management and what kind of like clubs and sports you're involved in, and just making sure that you have enough time to get everything done. So it can be stressful, but there's definitely ways to manage that stress as well.
Yeah, and I think also too, the junior year is really the last batch of grades that you see on a transcript. So when you send your transcript off to colleges, you're going to see your freshman, sophomore, junior year grades, and then just your senior schedule. So a lot of times I think with the added classes that you're having, but also by the time you're juniors, you find your balance by getting involved in a lot of different things. You kind of find what your niche is and what you like to be involved in, but also too that balance with honors and APs and all of that, and knowing that that's your last set of grades that colleges will see when you send in your transcript can sometimes put that pressure on, and know that that is an important year because that's what colleges are seeing. That's your last kind of group of grades.
Right. So with those classes, all those honors and AP and stuff, would you say that junior year is the hardest year, or do you think that that can just depend on what classes you take sophomore year? Or
I think it depends on the student. There are some students that can really handle a full load of AP classes, and then there's students that can handle one or two, or maybe a couple honors. I was a student that one honors was enough for me, and I was okay with that. But there are definitely other students, depending on what schools they're thinking about going to, it's going to depend on how they make their course load a little bit harder or easier for themselves.
Do you guys think that, why do you guys think that maybe some like AP classes are more important than some honors classes, or some CHS are more important than AP?
I think they're all important, and I think colleges want to see that you're challenging yourself and taking classes that are going to push you. And so advanced placement and the CHS courses are taught maybe more at like a college level, the type of rigor that you're going to see. But again, I think colleges are going to want to see kiddos who take some honors in AP versus someone who has straight A's in all academics, because you know, that's something that most students can really work towards, but pushing yourself in those higher level courses.
Yeah, and like what Ms. Patton was saying is, as you build upon that rigor, they're going to look at, what did you take freshman year? Did you take maybe one honors class, and in your sophomore you added 2 more honors classes, and then in your junior year you have some honors and then some AP. So what they're really looking at on that transcript is not just, did you take honors classes, but did you challenge yourself as you went along? Did you do well in those honors classes and continue in those honors classes? Or if you did well in honors classes, did you bump up to an AP? So that's what colleges, when they're looking at that transcript, it's not just the name of the class and what grade you got, but are you balancing out that rigor, and are you capable of it?
Kind of going along with that, are there certain like AP or CHS classes, this could be totally dependent on your major also, that like if a college sees it, they're like, oh, okay, like it's like it stands out a little more than others? Are there some of those, and why do they tend to stand out more?
I think that, like you said, depending on what major you're applying to, say you're going into engineering, because that's a big buzz major now as students are going into college, they're gonna want to see that you took physics. And if you took physics in your junior year, are you continuing along with that physics? If you're wanting to go maybe into mechanical engineering, are you taking some of our tech classes where you're using that 3D printer on top of that physics or AP level science? So it's a good balance, and they want to see that if you are going into engineering and have never had a physics class, they're going to be confused a little bit of what maybe made you change into that major, or those are things that you would want to explain through in your application. I don't necessarily think they're always looking for a specific class, but they do want to see that you're challenging yourself in one way or another, whether it's an AP or an honors.
And I think too that they want to see that you're well-rounded. So even if you are thinking about going into engineering, it's okay to step out and take some art courses. Because even when you look on Naviance and seeing what college admissions are looking for, they want to see science, they want to see math, they want to see history, but they want to see foreign language and arts and elective credits, so that this is a time for you to kind of play around and see what you like, what you don't like, so that when you get to college, it's going to help you with your major.
Are there any, so I know a lot of my friends sometimes, we kind of joke about like dropping from an AP class to a different, like a lower level class. Is there, and there tends to be like a lot of, I don't want to say like shame, but I feel like a lot of people feel like, oh, that's going to go in your transcript, that's terrible. Is that something that colleges will really look at and be like, oh, okay, like it's a little disappointing? Or is that more of just like, okay, clearly they weren't handling it, and how do colleges like take something like that and look at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at a transcript, when you say that you took honors history in 10th grade, maybe you got a C in that class, and you're like, I'm not really liking this class, it's not really my interest, but I'm really good at science, I'm really good at math, and I took academic, I'm gonna bump that up. So they're looking at everything across the board. And you have the opportunity on college admissions and in the application to really explain through a lot of different things. It's not just check a box and you submit your application. There's a lot of space for you to talk through, like, why did you make that change? And they're gonna see, like, okay, you maybe didn't do well in that class and went to the academic, but maybe bumped up in another class. So it's looking at the balance.
Right.
And I think you guys put more pressure on yourselves and the stigma that it is than it actually like really will play itself out in the college application process. I think you guys are harder on each other than college admissions is on you.
I think colleges do look at senior year though, because I think kiddos get to senior year, and when they're scheduling in their junior year for senior year, they're going to load up, oh, I'm going to take all these honors and APs, and then they get to senior year and they're like, oh, no, I want to drop and add all these electives. They do want to see that you're still continuing to push yourself senior year, and that you are still taking some competitive type of classes. So I think that is important, to not just drop because maybe you're feeling a little burnt out, which it can definitely, you have to have that balance, but also kind of keep with it.
Are there why do colleges look more at your core classes? Like, I know, speaking personally, I want to go into dance or musical theater as a major, so I'm obviously going to use certain things that I'm learning in some of my classes, but like, I'm not going to be like studying Beowulf as a commercial dance major. So are there certain, like, I took theater arts in my freshman and sophomore year. Do colleges, why do they tend to look more at like your core classes rather than classes like electives that might help your major, even though they might not be like AP Stat or whatever?
Well, if you're applying to a specific college or university in that major, they're going to want a portfolio, possibly in theater or in the arts that you're doing. So it is truly, again, dependent on your major, that they want to see the core classes, because those are the academic core standards that most states require for you to graduate from high school. So they are looking for those things. And every school is different. We just require 4 years of each core class. Some colleges want only 3 years of a math, but we give you more because we think it's beneficial for you moving forward. But if you're going to be applying into those arts and those things, they're gonna wanna look for those electives as well. Right. So it's about what the transcript as a whole looks like, not just those core classes. And I think that finding that balance is okay, and knowing that those core classes are required, but that's really more for our state standards and what your transcript looks like to graduate from Peters Township High School.
Right.
Agreed.
So when colleges look at your academic profile, like if your SAT or your GPA, if that's a little lower than their school average, is that something that's totally going to knock you out completely, or does that depend on the college, or how do they kind of like look at that and determine, like, okay, well, they took all these classes, they might not have got straight A's, their GPA might not be a 4.0 or a 3.8 or whatever. Is that something that like they could take out?
I think every college is going to be different. They're all looking for different things from year to year. But I always tell my kids to still apply, because you never know what admissions are looking for. And your major versus someone else's major have different requirements. And that's where the application process, where you can kind of show your strength. So if your SAT scores maybe aren't as high, but then you can kind of brag about yourself and talk about your grade point average and all the clubs that you're involved in and the volunteer work that you did. So just to show them the whole perspective of who you are as a student. But then there are going to be schools that literally use a chart and it's this GPA and this test score, and so I think it just depends.
Yeah, and as you're in your junior year and even before then, looking at GPA and test scores, you can start with your PSAT score as a kind of a jumping point. But we like to talk to students about putting them in categories: safety schools, target schools, reach schools. And what that looks like is a safety school with GPA and test score, we know that you can get accepted. You don't need to add in that extra resume or essay or teacher recommendation letters. Just with those things you can get in. Target school, you're going to want to be adding in more of that resume material and things like that, because your GPA is within that target range, but it's not necessarily perfect to be admitted right away. We want to look at everything as a whole. And then there's those reach schools where your GPA is falling and your test scores together are falling a little bit lower than their average acceptance, and that's where we look at what do your essays look like, what do your teacher recommendations look like. And there are students that get into their reach schools because of all of the things they do outside of just the four walls of the high school. They are involved. Maybe they are a leader within a club. They're doing multiple things, and schools more and more want to see students that are like decent human beings, getting out in the community and presenting themselves well. It's not just being a person that can do well in school. It comes with a lot of other things.
Right. So what classes would you guys encourage students to take going into their senior year, kind of going along with like balancing out AP and honors and then balancing clubs maybe into that? Are there any like specific classes that you definitely say like juniors you should really try and take this going into senior year?
Senior year?
I don't know.
I know.
I feel like still trying to find like what is going to be beneficial to you and like figuring out what you want to do. I feel like from a young age we're like, well, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? The easy answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that you know right away, and it's finding still those electives and things that you're interested in. Try to still put those in your schedule. If you're interested in psychology, take intro to psychology.
Right.
Before senior year, maybe then you'll take AP psychology. So having that balance of, am I interested in it, and is there an option for me to take a class in it? And I think personal finance or that class is really good for any student to take because it's real application of math and things that you're going to see as an adult.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really great class for students to take.
I agree. That is a really good class that I didn't get to take in high school, so I think I would take that as well. And agreed, it's just finding a balance, again, pushing yourself a little bit, maybe with an honors or AP, but also having those electives that you enjoy to take.
Right. We will be right back after the break to continue the college application process. Welcome back to The Edge. So I wanted to start talking a little bit about the SAT. So would you guys suggest juniors to start taking the SAT during their junior year, and why?
Yes, that is a good time for juniors to start thinking about when. We do recommend for our students, because you're going to be taking the PSAT in October of your junior year, to wait and see what your results are. Results come in around December, and that gives you a good idea of what you need to improve on, what you did well on, where you need to improve, where you can kind of practice. Which is really nice too, because College Board has a new feature and they are linking with Khan Academy. So if you go on and link your accounts, it will actually look at your PSAT results and pull materials to help where you need to improve. So that is a great tool for our juniors to use whenever they're getting ready to practice for the SAT. So when they get their scores back in December, I would say sometime in the spring. I know we have the SAT here in March
and May.
At Peters Township High School. But even if you wanted to wait a little longer, maybe in the summer, but spring and summer is a good timeline for juniors to take their SAT.
Like with the SAT, so there's actually two tests, the SAT or the ACT. And it's kind of dependent sometimes geographically where you live. When I worked in Florida, everyone took the ACT, nobody took the SAT really. So it's just really dependent. Colleges will accept either test. So I suggest that students take both tests at least once to kind of get a feel for, do they like one or the other better? Do they do better on one versus the other? And then focus on that test to possibly take again if needed. Right. But I do, like Ms. Patton was saying, encourage waiting until at least the spring, because on top of having the opportunity to take the PSAT and get your scores back, you'll have a lot more of your 11th grade English under your belt before you go in and take that SAT or ACT exam. Because with the English, we do a really good job preparing you here for the math. Not that English does not, but it's just limited to where you are in your grade level. And with math, you should be able to take the SAT without a calculator, and it's really that Algebra 2, end of Algebra 2. And most of you take that by the end of your sophomore year. So you're really prepared in the math. With English, you're limited to being a junior in your junior English, and that's what you're going to see on the SAT. So waiting until you have a lot more of your junior English in process through learning different things and how to kind of navigate that English, it's better to wait till that spring, which is a good jumping off point, which gives you maybe some summer time to take it again if needed for your senior year. Right.
Do you guys think, why do you think that there might be like harm in taking it multiple times? Like I've heard rumors, or like not really rumors, myths I guess maybe, that if you take it like more than 3 times your scores start to decrease. Do you think that's true, and why do you think that might be true?
Traditionally, that third time is really that tipping point. I think it's out there that that's a thing that happens, because when you look at statistically, most students do naturally decrease their score after that third time. That first time is, okay, I've taken it, I know how it is. The second time, they really either go into tutoring, or they utilize the online Khan Academy to prepare for it. And then if they feel they need to take it again that third time, and after a third time, you're kind of burn out with the process of it, how it's being taken. They're pretty long tests, so so taking it more than 3 times, you're either going to be good at it at that point, or you're going to kind of be over it, I guess you could say.
And that's the nice thing of having the ACT and the SAT. So if you do take it 2 to 3 times the SAT, then go ahead and switch and try the ACT. But yeah, you don't want to burn yourself out, because you will hit a plateau. But that's all I have.
Is there a test between the ACT and the SAT that you guys tend to see that students typically do better on, and why do you think that there is one?
I think that students, like I said, up here do the SAT more than the ACT, so I don't really see a lot of ACT data of students taking that. It just depends on the student. I've had students before that they've taken ACT, SAT, and we looked at their scores, went online to do you can look at them side by side and what they are and equate to each other, and their ACT ended up being better. So you can actually even put, this is my ACT score, what does that equate to as an SAT score, and see where that you can find the balance.
Oh, okay.
And I think it depends on the student. Here in PA, and with you having the PSAT in the 9th, 10th, and the 11th grade, you're exposed to the type of questions the SAT is asking. But I think it comes down to the individual, because I grew up in the Pittsburgh area and I could not do the SATs. They were so hard for me, and then I took the ACT and I actually did better. So I think it's just on the type of test taker that you are. But traditionally, with all the practice that we have and the exposure, I think our students tend to lean towards the SAT a little bit more. But like you said, their colleges will accept both.
Going along with practice and exposure, is there some method, whether it be tutoring or the Khan Academy link, that you would recommend to juniors who are going to take the SAT that you think might boost their score a lot, or help them prepare for it even more than they already have?
I think initially just starting with that Khan Academy, it gets you some practice, but when you link your scores, it's personalized to what you need to work on, which is really nice. So I think starting off with that for the first time, and then when you get your score back, if you feel that you need more tutoring or maybe something outside of school, I already know what I've done to prepare for the first SAT. Where do I need to go from here? Where do I want my score to be? Because some students are striving for specific SAT scores to get into certain colleges.
Right.
So you kind of can find that balance there. But utilizing that Khan Academy to start, I think, is a good, work on your own, see where you can get yourself for that first SAT, and then go from there.
And I think, too, it depends on the student. If they know they're going to put time aside to do the practice, some kiddos just are super busy and they just can't commit that time. And I think that's when maybe a tutor or even taking the SAT prep class here at Peters is like a designated time where they know, okay, for an hour I'm going to meet with somebody or sit in this class and get the review.
Right.
But for our students who are more independent, the Khan Academy is great because they can do that whenever.
So kind of like how you were saying, it the SAT, ACT difference kind of depends on the type of student you are. And so I also have, I'm a horrible test taker, so bad. So what advice would you give to people who are horrible test takers or have really bad test anxiety and how to approach the SAT or the ACT?
I would say practice, getting a good night's sleep the night before. Just so that you feel comfortable when you're walking in on test day. I think it depends too. I mean, if you have severe anxiety during the test, doing little tricks like breathing, just helping you concentrate, bring it back to, it's just a test.
Yeah.
And I think we all get so nervous and we're also, have that pressure on us to do so well. But you just have to remember it's just a test. You can take it again if need be, just kind of reassuring yourself that it'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with that is, again, it's not the only piece to the application puzzle.
Right.
There's so many different pieces that get put into place that it's just one small piece, and not that you should diminish what it means to the application process, but I think having that practice and being able to see, okay, this section of this test, knowing and understanding the time constraints that you have, because I think when you're put under a time constraint, it makes it worse.
Yes.
But if you already go into it knowing, I understand what these sections are like. If you take some practice tests online, take a full practice test. They're available, ACT and SAT. So set aside maybe, I know it's not fun, but set aside a Saturday at the same time that you would take the SAT and set up the time frames and give yourselves those sections and say, I only have 40 minutes to do this. And start working through that, because if it's the first time you're seeing it is on test day, it's going to be a struggle that you're like, oh my gosh, I only have 40 minutes, but I'm used to taking an hour. So you need to start utilizing those practice spaces and free online full tests that can help you kind of see what the time constraints are, because SAT gives you a little bit more time than the ACT does.
Yeah.
ACT is a quicker test and has one or two more sections than the SAT.
So would you, if besides a college requesting an SAT essay, would you suggest taking it, or would you suggest okay, if your colleges don't want it, don't do it? How do you feel about the essay?
I suggest taking the essay portion at least once, just because you might not know in May what schools you're going to be applying to.
Right.
You might have an idea, and at that point you might think none of the schools I'm applying to require the essay. But say in October you're like, oh, I really want to add this school, and they require the essay, then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So I always err on the side of caution and take it at least one time with that essay, so that when you send your score report, you can send the one with the essay and maybe your better score. And maybe that ends up being your better score.
Right.
So with schools, it's just really dependent on what they want. And I always err on the side of caution and take it at least once with the essay, and you don't have to take it again. They want to see it at least once with the essay, not every time.
Yeah, I agree, just to be safe.
So I kind of want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about finding the right college, because I know I'm stuck between multiple colleges here and there, opposite sides. So how would you suggest a student to really look in? Obviously their major is going to play a really big role in what college they do want to go to, but what else would you suggest them to look at and see what they would like in a college?
I think going to visit. You obviously do all the research online, seeing what schools have your majors, reading about them, and they have all those information packets. But when you go and you go on a tour, or you set up a meeting with an advisor or even a professor within your major, I even did overnights where you would spend a night and either stay in the dorm or have people go around, and you just can really get a good feel to see if you can see yourself on that campus.
Right.
And being able to ask questions to students, to faculty, to advisors, just to see what they have to say and just the excitement, I think that really helps. But then we also have colleges that will come here at Peters, to come and talk to you, usually one period in room 119. But they will, it's like a one-on-one, just usually a few kids go, and you can be able to talk and ask your questions there as well.
Yeah, and I think those visits to the high school are really, the admissions officers that come to talk about their schools want to see juniors. A lot of times our seniors are coming down to just kind of finalize things, but they're like, where are our juniors? So you can find those on Naviance. There's a whole list all the way through November of the colleges and universities that are visiting. They're also on the morning announcements. But finding your fit, that's a big part of it. You want to see where do I feel like I fit in? What kind of personality does this campus have? Do I see myself there? There's a lot of ways to do that, whether it's getting into Naviance and looking at does it check all of the boxes you want academically? But also there's a lot in there that you can see, does it have my major? Does it have those different things? Utilize that time in Naviance. Get in there and familiarize yourself with Naviance, which every Wednesday that we have during the week, lunch periods on Wednesdays, there's a counselor in 119 for workshop Wednesdays. So if you have questions about, does this school make sense for me? Or how do I find schools that have this major? There's so many different avenues in Naviance. Like I love Naviance. I think it's super fun. To me, it's super fun. But it's really helpful to students because you can actually look up a career, and from that career you can backtrack to what major gets you to that career, and from that major, what schools offer that major. So there's so many different avenues to do this research and to see not only is this major right for me, but is this school right for me? Because you can look up colleges in there as well. They have online videos. It'll take you sometimes to their online tours. If you can't get to the school, maybe it's really far away. There's ways to do online video tours and different things like that that can show you what the school is really like. And usually those tours are hosted by students that are within their admissions office and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know about that. I feel like some people
come on Wednesdays.
might not know that. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So the college application process is one of the biggest parts of any high school student's life. Remember to speak to your guidance counselor if you have any questions about junior year, senior year, or college. Thanks for watching and have a great day. And thank you for joining me.